Funny about that. You know who was asking about you the other day? Who's that? Nobody.
We talking about sports, get ball.
What it do, baby? Yeah.
What it do, you number one podcast listeners? You have tuned in to a brand new edition of the number one podcast in your headphones, Prem Brulee. I'm your host, Premal, and I got a special guest today. He has risen from the podcast dead. My good friend, former podcast host, current friend, Akshat Singhal has joined me on this very special episode of Prem Brulee. Akshat, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. It's been a while. Feels like years at this point. Probably has been years.
Yeah. Hopefully this feels like riding a bike. Get back on the mic. Full disclosure, number one podcast listeners, Akshat is coming for the jugular. He initiated and has some things to get off his chest. And then collectively, a one Mr. Ryan Day made it so that we'll both have some things to get off our chest as well, thanks to his abysmal performance. But more on that later. Of course, the main reason that this edition is happening is college football playoffs, 12-team playoff, and we have our final bracket heading into this historic year of an expanded 12-team college football playoff. So we wanted to talk and go deeper into that before we get to the spiciness that I'm sure we will deliver on for you number one podcast listeners. So, Akshat, I know you're a listener, despite you not having hosted in a while. I know this will all be still familiar to you. We're going to kick things off with Yeah Fam or Nah, and we're going to keep it real simple in Yeah Fam or Nah so that we can do it in the more traditional sense as open it up for discussion. The 12-team college football playoff is out. It is, by now, you number one podcast listeners are likely well aware, but we'll break down the opening rounds. I did want to establish the top 4 seeds in the college football playoff. Of course, the overall number 1 is Oregon. They are the only undefeated team and the Big Ten champions in their first year in this expanded Big Ten conference. They are going to be the 1 seed, and they will play the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee, and that game will be the Rose Bowl. So Oregon finally won't have to travel across the country. They'll go to Pasadena for their quarterfinal game with whoever wins between the 8-9 game, which is Ohio State and Tennessee. The number 2 seed is the Georgia Bulldogs, who won the SEC championship in overtime against Texas. They get the 2 seed. They are the overall 2. They will await the winner of Notre Dame and Indiana. All Indiana battle is the 7-10 matchup. That winner will go to the Sugar Bowl against Georgia. That is definitely SEC territory. I know the Mercedes-Benz is their home away from home, but Sugar Bowl is probably a close second to that. The number 3 seed, who was not the overall number 3, but by virtue of this format of conference champions getting buys, is Boise State. They finished 12-1, their one loss being to overall 1 seed Oregon in Eugene. It took Oregon 2 special teams touchdowns to win that game at the beginning of the year. Boise State as a 3 seed will await the winner of Penn State SMU. That's the 6 versus 11 matchup. And that'll happen in Glendale at the Fiesta Bowl. And your last conference champion to get a bye in this first playoff is the 4 seed Arizona State Sun Devils, who won in their first year in the Big 12. They beat Iowa State in their conference title, and they will await the winner of the 5 seed Texas Longhorns and the surprise 12 seed Clemson Tigers. The winner of Texas and Clemson will go to the Peach Bowl, where Arizona State will host. So Arizona State will go all the way to Georgia and play the winner of Texas Clemson. So obviously that's the whole bracket breakdown. The teams that slipped into the college football playoff that were not in the top 12 were Clemson, obviously, who I think finished 16, and I believe SMU wasn't.
SMU was 10th.
SMU is a 10 seed. Thank
Yeah.
you. So the first two teams out were Alabama and then
Miami.
That's a breakdown of the bracket. Akshat, I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this. So I got a few questions. You can take it wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on the final rankings. We're going to go through the opening round matchups and pick who we think's going to win later. But just your thoughts on the opening round matchups. Do you think anybody got snubbed? And do you like the format, the conference champions getting a bye, Boise State and Arizona State not having to play the opening round despite not being a top 4 overall ranking? Do you like this format? Is it sustainable? And then I know you and I will probably talk a little bit more about this, but the main conversation was that 12th team to get in, and it was between SMU and Alabama. SMU obviously got in. They lost their conference championship. They lost the ACC championship to Clemson in an upset win. Clemson essentially stole a spot in the college football playoff. Do you agree with the committee putting in SMU, or do you think Bama should have gotten in? So take it where you want to, Akshat. I think overall this is a yeah fam or not because we're talking about it. This is definitely a yeah fam, but you take this subject wherever you want to take it, bud.
Yeah, I guess so. The teams that made it in, I agree with all 12. So I agree with taking SMU over Bama, but I'm also of the mind that if they had put Bama in over SMU, I think I would have been fine with it. I don't think I wasn't really strongly opinionated on that. I get why SMU was in. I would have also understood why Bama would have gotten a spot had that happened. In terms of the seeding, I think my issue is more with some of the seeding. It seems clear that they didn't dock teams for losing in the conference championship games all that much. But despite that, I don't really see any reason why, and I don't want to sound like an Ohio State homer here, but I don't see any reason why Penn State should be ahead of Ohio State because we beat them in Happy Valley. So if you're comparing two lost Big Ten teams, I would assume the team with the head-to-head win should theoretically be ranked higher, but it is what it is. Yeah. And because of that, Penn State may have just gotten an absolute cakewalk to the semifinals because they play SMU and then Boise State, Boise State's probably a good team, a really good team, but that's definitely the easiest draw I think they could have gotten.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas we, on the other hand, Ohio State has to play Tennessee and then the number 1 seed Oregon to get to the semis. So it's a tough draw for OSU. Not that they can't do it. We only lost to Oregon by 1 point at Oregon earlier this year. So if we beat Tennessee, I think Oregon is beatable. But they're the number 1 seed for a reason. They went undefeated. In terms of the overall format, I'm okay with some of it. I like the bye weeks or the 2 teams getting byes. I don't know if I agree with 4 teams getting byes because essentially, you have Boise State who is finished ranked 10th and Arizona State finished 12th. So they had each of them had several teams ranked ahead of them that didn't get byes just because of the nature of the format and how conference champions get byes, or the top 4 do. So I'm kind of looking forward to the potential 14-team playoff that's being rumored for a couple years out, where I think only 2 conferences, essentially the Big Ten and SEC, would be the ones to get byes.
Yeah.
Because I think those are probably the only conferences that have the schedule that warrants getting a bye. Whereas,
totally,
you have Boise State, they didn't really play anyone. Arizona State didn't really play anyone. Boise State, they played Oregon, lost, close game. But outside of that, none of these teams have marquee wins on their schedules that I think warrant getting a bye. But it is what it is. That's what the format is. I don't really, based on how this format is, I think they got most of this. I think they got the field right. Like I said, I think just some seeding stuff I would have probably switched around. I don't think. Yeah. I think Texas should have dropped more than one spot in the rankings for losing to a Georgia team that didn't have its quarterback for the entire second half. I think. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Penn State I think should have been below us. I also don't quite understand the reasoning behind SMU being 11 and Clemson 12 when Clemson just beat them.
Right. They have a head-to-head matchup. Yeah.
But again, it is what it is. That's just how the rankings shook out. I guess that was just them not dropping SMU for losing in a conference championship game. But I think you can go back at SMU's schedule and just wonder what wins do they have? Like, they don't really have any. I think their best win is Pittsburgh maybe? Not like an 8-4 Pittsburgh team. So.
Right. Yeah, I think the main conversation between SMU and Alabama was Alabama has strength of schedule to hang their hat on, while SMU being left out would set a very dangerous precedent for the committee because they're trying to encourage conference championships. And if they had kept SMU out, what would stop a team from saying, why would we risk being out of this playoff by losing the conference championship?
Right.
Because that would have been what they conceivably did if they left SMU out, them losing it on a 56-yard field goal last second with not even playing their best game. And if that would have kept them out of the college football field, playoff field, that would have been very, very alarming for teams in the future, I think. So that's why I think they made the right move. And I think I would have been outrage isn't the right word. I mean, it is what it is. We're not Alabama or SMU fans, God forbid. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Yuck.
Petty alert. Petty alert. Petty alert.
I definitely would have felt a type of way if Alabama got in over them, because this notion, and we're going to talk about Alabama some more, so I don't want to tip my hat too much about this, but this angle that SEC fans and analysts and stuff have about Alabama, about their tough strength of schedule, is so stupid to me, because their scheduling had nothing to do with them losing to bottom tier SEC schools.
Yep.
They lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. What about any kind of schedule was going to solve that for them?
Yeah.
They're acting like they went through this insane out-of-conference gauntlet. No, your issue is you lost 3 times, and 2 of them should have been avoidable. So you're over here critiquing these teams that beat teams that they should have, and you didn't beat teams you should have. So I don't understand why the SEC gets a pass where, like, somehow their bottom-tier teams are supposed to be better in all of our eyes, and we're not supposed to act like you didn't lose to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns. Like, that happened on the field. So you telling me all this shit on the side doesn't avoid the fact that you have 2 of your 3 are really bad losses.
Yeah.
I mean, if Ryan Day didn't shit the bed every year against Michigan, and especially this year, that Alabama would have had so much attention on them for their bad losses. Now, Ohio State losing to this Michigan squad was the worst loss of the year. And I might be, again, biased and, wearing my scarlet and gray glasses, but that had to be the worst loss of the year. And I think Alabama's skating by like we're looking over here at this shiny object and avoiding that turd that they're hiding behind their back, which is losing to fucking Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Like, give it a rest. Beat teams you should. So I get the whole strength of schedule thing, and maybe there's a way to have those initial rankings put teams with better strength of schedule ranked higher as you go on, so that it makes it harder to drop them below if you're already having like a criteria in the weeks leading up to it, like, hey, this team is perceived better because of their strength of schedule, so it's going to be tough for them to have a team jump them.
Right. That was a point that I think Nick Saban brought up during the selection show today, where he said that if we're gonna pretend like this strength of schedule matters, which it should, I think it should. If we're gonna pretend like it matters, then maybe Bama should have been ranked higher than wherever they were to begin with, and SMU should have been ranked lower. Yeah. SMU maybe never should have been 8th to begin with going into the conference title game.
That's the only way you could set precedent like that, I think. Yeah, I'm looking at SMU's schedule. I mean, they don't... Yeah, Pitt, like you said it earlier, Pitt and Louisville are their best wins.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, that's just the schedule they got. Not much you can do about it. But at the same time, the only half-decent teams they played, they lost to. They lost to Clemson, and they lost to BYU.
Yeah. So... I agree with you. I think they got the field right. I don't love the seating. Ward Manuel, who's Michigan's athletic director, and he's the head of the committee for this edition, he said they're tasked with just ranking the teams and they don't think about matchups. I would challenge the committee to think about matchups because, Akshat, you outlined, we're Ohio State fans, so... We're looking at the road that Ohio State has in this 8-9 matchup and then go face Oregon again. What about Oregon's point of view? Oregon is far and away the top team so far this year. Why should they have a tougher draw?
Yeah, I mean, it was almost better to be either the 5 seed or the 6 seed this year than to be the 1 seed.
Yep, absolutely. If you're a Penn State fan, you love, like, Akshay, you already went through it. That's the draw. Yeah. The 6 seed is like, I mean, you're right. They have no reason not to make the semifinal. If you have SMU to Boise State, if you're Penn State, you have no reason not to make the semifinal.
Yeah. And you get to host a game there?
Yeah.
You're asking SMU, a team out of Texas, to come up to Pennsylvania in December.
Oh, they're lucky Penn State didn't get a night game, one of the night game slots.
And like same with, I mean, Texas, whatever, weather isn't really the factor there. But, I mean, they get to host Clemson, who, as you said, basically stole a spot in the playoffs. And then Arizona State. So it was as the number 1 seed.
And don't forget, Clemson was only in the position to be in their conference title because Miami shit the bed and lost at the end of the year. And because they lost to Syracuse, they got left out of their conference championship. So Clemson wouldn't have even been in contention to steal a spot.
Yeah. So they really backed their way in. And, I mean, good for them. They beat SMU in the ACC title game. But, I mean, if Miami doesn't shit the bed, they're not there. Miami's here. Because Miami probably beats SMU. But, I mean, as the 1 seed for Oregon, I don't want Oregon to win, obviously, but they got hosed. Their draw sucks.
Yeah, so I just think, I know they're supposed to just rank the teams and they have rules for these teams jumping into the bye week. So maybe removing these automatic bye weeks for conference championships would solve all these issues. But if they don't, for some reason, remove this, which they absolutely should, there's no reason Boise State and Arizona State need to be having a bye week bye in this playoff. They should just, if you win your conference, you're one of the top 5 conferences to win, you get an automatic bid. It's not a bye.
Right.
That shouldn't be in the qualifications because I think that's the reason for the bullshit matchups and the disadvantage for Oregon and this tough matchup for Ohio State and Tennessee. It would be solved if they removed these stipulations for the bye. But if they don't remove them, they do need to consider matchups because the idea that a 6 seed Penn State would have an easier path to the semifinals than the 1 seed Oregon or like the 2 seed Georgia, that seems silly to me.
Right.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll make our opening round picks in a little later and who you got, but it is fascinating. It's cool to see. Like, I think when I was watching the coverage, Kirk Herbstreit brought up, like, there was always conversations when it was a 14 playoff and people were thinking there won't be with 12 teams, but here we are talking about it this year too with the expanded field. So I do like the format, like you said. I think I agree. I would like just 2 buys, the top 2 seeds getting a bye. I think that would make for more of a competitive field. If this 12 team is to remain, I just think they need to remove the conference champion qualifier for the bye.
Right.
Because I just think it should be the top 4 seeds. If that's who you determine is your best 4 teams, they should be the ones with the bye. So I think it should be, in the committee's eyes, they ranked Oregon 1, Georgia 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4. Those should be your 4 teams with a bye. And then it would create better, I think it would create more appropriate matchups. Because if you gave those 4 teams a bye for being the top 4 seeds, then you would have Notre Dame playing Clemson. You would have Ohio State playing Arizona State. You would have Tennessee playing SMU. And you would have Indiana playing Boise State. That seems like more appropriate matchups.
Yeah.
And it gives an actual advantage to the higher seeds, even the ones that are playing the opening round and having a home game. Because right now, Ohio State is playing a Tennessee team that's ranked 7 in the 8-9 matchup. I mean,
congratulations.
6 and 7 are playing in the 8-9 matchup. Just saying that sentence sounds so stupid.
Yeah, it's funny because like I opened up FanDuel just to see because there was like some news going around before the selection show that Ohio State Tennessee was already bettable on like all the betting apps. So I opened it up and it said 6-7 next to Ohio State and Tennessee. I was like, this is so weird. This doesn't make any sense that 6-7 is an 8-9 seeding, but it's just how this format is. I think another thing that would help with, I don't think they would do this because I understand that it's probably a logistical nightmare, but if they reseeded after the first round, so then you're not stuck with this. Oregon has to play the winner of Tennessee Ohio State. They get to play the lowest remaining seed.
I like that. I like that too. That would be another alternative if you want to keep this format. I agree. If somehow Clemson upsets Texas, then they should have to go play the 1 seed.
Yeah. Like, there's no reason that a 1 seed should be in the worst position of all of the teams with the byes, because they're going to have to play the winner of Tennessee Ohio State. And as much as I rag on Ohio State, and we'll get to some of that later, but this Ohio State team is arguably the most talented team in the country. Have they shown it on the field consistently? Not really, but they are an incredibly talented team. They could go into this number 1 seed game against Oregon and win that, and Oregon's going to be stuck having to play the one team this year that gave them a good game, or second team, I guess.
Yeah.
Boise State also did, but
yeah. I mean, that felt like it was before they figured their shit out. Oregon had like really slow games to start the year, Boise State being one of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see it all shake out. The opening rounds, the Friday night game, December 20th, for you number 1 podcast listeners, which I'm sure you're also aware of. The Friday night game is in South Bend. It is the Battle of Indiana. Notre Dame will host Indiana, and that is a Friday night game. Saturday has the remaining 3 games. The noon game, noon Eastern, is Penn State hosting SMU in Happy Valley. The 4 o'clock game is in Austin, Texas Clemson, and then Ohio State Tennessee. By no surprise to anyone, I think everybody kind of figured they were going to get one of the 2 night games in Columbus. Is going to be the final of the 4 games in the opening round, where Ohio State will host Tennessee on Saturday, December 21st at 8 Eastern. So it'll be a fun little 24 hours there, Friday night through Saturday night. Well, I guess depending on who you're a fan of, maybe it'll be fun, maybe it won't.
I can't wait to freeze my ass off at this game.
Are you gonna go?
I'm gonna try. I have a couple friends who have season tickets, so I'm gonna try to get tickets to them.
Love it. That's a historic one right there.
Yeah.
To see a opening round playoff game in person, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Number 1 podcast listeners, we knew we were going to have an extended discussion about this, so purposely kept it just to the playoff, since that's what's on the top of everybody's head. So without further ado, let's hit that You Played Yourself intro.
I'm petty as hell. And I'm super petty.
Here we
Petty Le Pew.
go.
That's right, number 1 podcast listeners. You know what time it is. It is time for You Played Yourself. We know why you tuned in here. We teased it. We don't want you to wait any longer. You already know my football on Sundays, football is dead, but wow, I really didn't think this would happen to my team that plays on Saturdays. So this is going to be a duo. You played yourself. We had to kick off You Played Yourself with Ryan Day. Listen, number one podcast listeners. I talk spicy. We talk in hyperbole on here on this number one podcast in your headphones. That's what you came here for. In real life, I try not to talk in hyperbole when I'm talking about my teams because I know there has been worse, you know, in the history of historic program like Ohio State, there has been worse. But this loss by Ryan Day and Ohio State to Michigan is the most egregious, catastrophic loss that I have seen since I've understood football. The idea that this supremely talented Ohio State team would manage to just score 10 points, only give up 13 on their defense, the defensive side of the ball, and lose to a far less talented Michigan team. Should be a 500 team in the Big Ten with huge talent gaps, huge injuries to two of their star players. The idea that Ohio State would be this abysmal was not even in the realm of possibilities. Listen, I knew going in, Ohio State lost 3 in a row. But I'd be lying if I said that losing this version of the game was even possible. Because the talent gap was so substantial, Ohio State was better at every single position group, except for maybe defensive line. And Ryan Day's weak, dumb ass, weakly mental, in his own head so far up his own ass, and so nervous, pissing down his leg, ran right into the strength of Michigan's defense.
Their only strength.
Their corners are weak, and guess what Ohio State's strength is? The fucking wide receivers, because of this saint of a recruiter and wide receiver developer, Brian Hartline, and you managed to not get them the ball. Get your fucking best players the ball. And if something's not working, you don't bang your head against it until it does, because it's not gonna turn around. This man is so mentally weak that he can't stand being once called a finesse team, so he has it so stuck in his head that he has to prove that his teams can run the ball even when it's not fucking working. This man is so evident of the fact that the last X amount of meetings between Ohio State and Michigan, the team that's won the rushing battle has won the game, that he insists on trying to win the rushing battle when it's in the fucking second half and the rushing battle is out of reach. Go fucking win the game. Go try something that actually is working, and don't keep trying the thing that's not. I don't think I should have to say that. I don't think fans should have to say that. If everybody in the fucking building knows to not run it directly up the fucking gut against Michigan's first round talent defensive tackles, one of which is probably going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and the other's probably going to be a first or second round pick. Maybe don't run directly into him with your makeshift offensive line that's been put together by duct tape at this point in the year. I don't think that should have to be said. And I don't think everybody in the entire building, in that entire stadium, and anybody watching at home, even non-Ohio State fans, knew, hey, maybe don't run the ball. And somehow the fucking head coach and offensive coordinator are the only ones that didn't realize it. I can't even fathom how bad of a loss that was, with everything in front of this man. A Big Ten championship chance, a chance at ridding yourself of 3 losses in a row with your extremely talented, arguably, like you said, Akshat, earlier, most talented in the country team, to lose to a 500 team whose quarterback threw for less than 90 yards and gave up 2 or 3 red zone turnovers, trying to gift your team the win, and you still couldn't manage to pass the fucking ball? And then you would think, oh, did the passes not work? No, their one touchdown drive was when they passed the ball at the end of the half. They did tempo, they passed the ball. You would think, oh, Did they try that again? No, you would be wrong. They did not try that again because, God forbid, we go with something that works. God forbid Ryan Day doesn't get in his own head, doesn't pee down his leg after losing 3 in a row. It has gotten to the point where I'm now going to expect, if Ryan Day's still the coach next year, that they're going to lose this game. Because there is something in the air here where if they manage to lose this year's version of the game, I don't see how they can win one where the talent is even close to the same. Because the advantage was so far to Ohio State, and they still didn't play their game and played right into Michigan's hands. They are in your head. It is so clear. That's the only way you could lose that game, and he managed to do it. And I can't believe anything I hear out of him anymore. I think even the biggest Ryan Day defenders in Buckeye Nation saw that as the last straw. It feels very much like national championship or bust for Ryan Day, and I hope it is. But I fear and am predicting that he is going to be back next year, and we're going to do this all over again. Akshat, your floor. Sorry to hog it, but I'm sure I'll think of more. But that game was just absolutely atrocious. I still have trouble wrapping my head around how they lost that game with the amount of talent Ohio State has. The passes were working. When Ohio State passed the ball, we were either completing it, or the Michigan secondary, which is weak, especially without their best player, who is another arguably top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Will Johnson was out. They were committing pass interference, or Ohio State was completing the pass. It's going to bother me for the rest of my life, that loss. And I think it's going to be the same for Ohio State.
Yeah,
Akshat.
There's really, you kind of covered most of it. It's just, you go into that game thinking that, like, there's no way we could have lose that. Just right. The talent discrepancy, the stakes, this was a bad Michigan team. They had 3 non-quarterbacks that they rotated throughout the year and couldn't figure out one to keep. And pardon my take, I don't know if you listen to Pardon My Take. I think Big Cat said this. He said, given the circumstances, he said this might be the worst loss he's ever seen. Just like you have 3 straight losses to Michigan on your resume, and when you're the coach at Ohio State, your first goal isn't to win a title. That's part of it, but your first goal is to beat Michigan. And Ryan Day is now 1-4 against Michigan. His one win came with essentially Urban's roster. It was Ryan Day's first year as head coach. It wasn't his roster, and then they didn't play COVID year, and then 4 straight losses.
Let's be clear. Michigan ducked Ohio State the COVID year, so we're not going to let them escape that.
That's true. Michigan did duck Ohio State, and that was a bad Michigan team too. They were like 2-5 or something that year.
Yes.
But and then after the 2020 year, I think that's when the born on third base comment happened, and I think Harbaugh called Ryan Day's team soft, and I think that's the comment that just broke him.
Oh, he got his little feelings hurt.
That just broke Ryan Day forever. And we see it. Yep. We saw it the last 3 years. And the last 3 years, I mean, you could say, Michigan was a good team. Ohio State was still a really good team, too. Ohio State was recruiting as well, even better than Michigan, as well as like the top teams in the country. And we just shat the bed those 3 years. And then this year was the year for him to turn it around, flip that narrative, and like kind of regain whatever confidence he had lost the last 3 years against Michigan. And he couldn't do it. I mean, 10 points by an offense that was, by all metrics, like a top 5 offense in the country. They put 10 points out against a defense that was missing arguably its best player. And then its offense was missing arguably its best player. And it's not like Michigan's offense did anything. We handed them the ball in the red zone once. They had once, I think at one point they had 0 first downs despite having 10 points because we gave them the ball at like the 3-yard line. They punched it in, then their field goal, which came off a pick or a fumble or some turnover.
Awful pick. By Will Howard.
And like Will Howard wasn't great that game. He definitely had issues throwing the ball, but as you said, that one drive before before half where we went up tempo. We didn't let Michigan get set on defense. He was picking them apart. And we drew threw to JJ twice and drew 2 PIs, one in the end zone. I mean, it was working. And then we came out in the second half and did none of that.
Yep. You just thought, I was like, okay, Ohio State's been great in the middle 8. The last 4 of the first half, the first 4 of the second half. And you thought, okay, they get the ball coming out of half, they're going to turn it on. And they just never did. And I think there was this wild stat about I think Ohio State's last first down was with like 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. They didn't get a first down after that.
Yeah, because we only had the ball twice after that, because that's when
7 plays.
Yeah, Michigan got the ball and went long drive to end the third going into the fourth, and then I think that was when they threw the pick in the end zone. And then we did nothing with it.
Jack Sawyer.
Yeah, the Jack Sawyer pick. Then we did nothing. We went 3 and out, got the ball. Then the last
Michigan got their game-winning drive.
Yeah, and then we just got the ball with 40 seconds left and did 4 plays of nothing.
Did nothing.
There's just so many things you can look back at. We missed field goals, very, very short, makeable field goals.
My indicator that I knew Ohio State was going to lose the game, there was a 3rd and 10 in the red zone. Ohio State had the ball, and Ryan Day and Chip Kelly elected to run a draw.
Yeah.
Usually reserved for conceding for either a punt or, in this case, a field goal. The indicator that gave, which I imagine the team felt, is they were playing it safe at best, and at worst, you don't trust the offense to throw the ball. And then Ohio State proceeded to miss one of their field goals, and I think I said the words, "That's what you get." And obviously there's that saying, like scared money don't make money, and that is not Ohio State's MO to play that way. And they didn't play their way. They cheated. In my opinion, the coaches cheated their team out of a chance of winning that game. I've never seen such an egregious display of bad coaching to set their team up for failure than that game right there. Than Ryan Day-led team. And he's done it time and time again. And Ohio State fans, before we had the whole Connor Stallions excuse, all that stuff, that is out the window. Because Ryan Day has managed to piss down his leg multiple times. And this was the most egregious of all, this version of it. And then we could talk about this flag planting shit. I do not have a problem with defending your home field. Everybody's like, you should have done it on the field. Well, if you pay attention, the Ohio State players that were fighting the Michigan players who's trying to plant a flag were the defense. Defense played their asses off. If anybody can defend that field with their head high, it is them. It's Jack Sawyer. They played their butt off. They gave up 13 points, created turnovers. What more could you ask for an offense? They had every right to defend their logo. I have no problem with them defending their field. I have no problem with any team. If you want to try to plant your flag, go for it. But you best believe if I'm on the team that lost, I am not letting you do it. I will fight you before I do. I don't care if we could have settled it on the field.
Look, I stay petty so I don't have to get petty.
I'm not just going to sit there and let you do that on my field. Hell no. So we can say all this stuff about flag planting and all that and be outraged like, oh, you should have stopped them on the field. You mean to tell me if you saw someone trying to do that, you wouldn't try to defend yours? Like, get the fuck out of here. So I didn't see any offensive player out there. Then I could have believed that narrative. Oh, you should have done something on the field first. No, they were busy over there, distracted, or maybe already in the locker room. I don't know, being soft as hell like they are. So that's what it is. You played yourself goes to Ryan Day, especially Ryan Day, not Ohio State's defense, but Ryan Day and probably that offense, but it's not like those receivers could call plays for him. So you played yourself.
You know what was another incredibly egregious display of horrible coaching? You remember that timeout? We took a timeout on Michigan's last possession late in the game, and then out of the timeout, we got called for 12 men on the field.
Yep.
How do you do that after a timeout? How is that possible?
And he mismanaged. He mismanaged the clock. He could have used the timeout before the 2-minute warning and let it run to the 2-minute warning, and then it's what you're describing that penalty too. So it was supposed to be that when Ryan Day finally gave up play calling, he was supposed to be the CEO and like game manager, and he's failed at it.
Yep.
He failed at it in the biggest game. There's no part of what he did that worked. What gives Ohio State fans any confidence heading into their opening playoff game, heading into next year if Ryan Day's the coach, heading into next matchup with Michigan? Akshat, you said it. There are 3 goals when you're Ohio State's coach. Beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win a national title. Ryan Day has gone 0 for 3 repeatedly on those in his years as coach. Ryan Day defenders will hang their hat on the fact that he almost beat Georgia. So your best argument is that he still lost and he's beating teams he should. I mean, let's take a step back here. If you're still defending Ryan Day, which I don't think there are many left after this loss, but if your best defense is a loss and then that he beats teams that he should or any coach should, that's not really an argument to me.
Yeah.
So that's just where I'm at.
I always go back to on top of him not being able to beat Michigan, I always go back to he's 3-6 against top 5 teams, which you could say top 5 is like an unfair measure, but we're Ohio State. We're consistently in the top 5. Yep. The measure is other teams that are of similar stature to you. Yep. And if you are consistently losing to those teams, that's a coaching issue. You know the talent is there. Yep. The talent has always been there. Yep. We've had top 5 recruiting classes pretty much every year for the last decade. It's on-field results that have consistently been missing. And you can go back to that Georgia game and you could come up with excuses, but the fact of the matter is we had a double-digit lead going into the fourth quarter and we lost. Did we lose Marvin Harrison to an injury that game? Yeah. But we still had a 11-point lead, 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, and we lost.
And a chance at a closer field goal.
Yeah.
Totally mismanaged play calling. Yeah. I'll never forget that.
I didn't even watch that field goal. I was at that game, and I turned around. Yeah. I was like, I'm not watching this. I know what's going to happen. Yep. We haven't had a good kicker in what feels like 20 years at this point.
Yeah, I was saying this. Shouldn't Mike Nugent have a son by now?
Yeah, every other player we grew up with has a son that plays. Where's Mike Nugent?
Yeah, I agree with you completely there. I'll leave it with this. I think it's a Mike Tomlinism. The standard is the standard. This is Ohio State. People can say all this stuff, lecture Ohio State fans, all this stuff, like your expectations are too high. Yeah, no fucking duh. It's Ohio State football.
We are a top 3 brand in college football.
Yep.
Top 3 recruiting school in college football. We own this entire area for football, and we can't win the big games.
Yep. Yeah. The standard is the standard. If Alabama fans don't accept a lesser product, if Georgia fans don't accept a lesser product, that's where Ohio State should be. That's the measuring stick. It's not, oh, you should be happy with all this gaudy record. Ohio State should beat Purdue. They should beat Northwestern.
Yeah.
They should beat these lower tier teams. That's not the job.
Right.
That's not the job description. That's a given. Those are like minimum qualifications. The main goals are the 3 we said, and Ryan Day's not in any of them. We're not asking for all 3. We're not naive. It doesn't happen every year, but he's not hitting any of them.
Yeah, he is.
And that's why I feel like he's got one checklist left this year, and it's national championship or bust to me. Otherwise, find somebody who can. That's where we're at Ohio State. Like the guy, he does a lot of good. It seems like he's great. The players love him, but the standard is the standard. That's just what it is. It's Ohio State football.
Yeah, I think that was his.
You as a fan shouldn't accept less. Don't lower your expectations because someone's not meeting them.
Yeah.
This isn't even time for too much sense, but like the standard is the standard. Ohio State, you got to expect the best. And if someone's not there meeting it, they're not the best. And you could say, oh, who else are you going to go find? Fucking call anyone. Anybody's taking that call. Make them say no. Make the top coaches say no. They're all taking the call. It's Ohio State football. Don't get it twisted around here.
Yeah, I think it was after the 2020 season where that was the Ryan Day's like self-proclaimed goals for the program were the 3 that you just said: beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win a Natty. Since then, he is 0 for 11 on those, and very well could go 0 for 12 given the draw that Ohio State has. And that's the thing. Like, if those are his own goals and he's not hitting them, then what is he doing here? What's the point?
Yep.
He hasn't hit any of them.
That's the point.
And like you said, the record, he has what's his I don't know, what's his win percentage here? Something like 80%. Great, yeah, he's beating everyone he should beat. That's how he gets that win percentage. Like, that's not all that impressive to me when through his 5 years here, we've been arguably the most talented team in the country. We've definitely been the most talented team in the Big Ten all of these years, and he's beating up on the lesser teams, and even then, we beat these lesser teams, and half the time, like I know as Ohio State fans we're probably spoiled a bit, but half the time, even when we're beating up on like Purdue, I want to rip my hair out because we don't make it look fun. We're not doing it in a way that I'm like enjoying watching the game. It's just, we're beating Purdue by 40, but I mean, Purdue is still, like this year, I was watching Indiana beat Purdue like 66-0 to end their regular season. You know how many yards Purdue had that game? 67. They had as many yards as Purdue had, or as Indiana had points. And I went back and I looked at our game against Purdue, which is the same horrible Purdue team this year. And they had 220 yards of offense against us and had multiple drives where they just held the ball for like 6-7 minutes. If Indiana's defense can hold them to 67 yards, why can't we do that? Why don't we come out with that same mentality against these teams? Why do we let them have more hope than they should? Why do we not just from the very first minute just absolutely beat the piss out of them?
Ohio State, I mean, I've talked to so many of my friends, like they started slow pretty much every game.
Yeah.
And to me that's coaching. Like you've watched game after game of it happening and nothing's been corrected in that sense.
Yeah, and every week we say like, we started slow and we still won by like 20, but that's just because these teams are so much worse than us. At some point you're going to play a team that's just as talented as you, and these slow starts aren't going to cut it. You have to, when you're better than these teams, go up on them quick. Make them uncomfortable. Don't let them play into whatever style they want you to play.
A la this Michigan game.
He did exactly what Michigan wanted them to do. Michigan wanted this to be low scoring. They wanted us to run the ball right into their strength. And guess what? Ryan Day did exactly that.
Cannot believe it. I still can't believe it. I can't wrap my head around that one. But anyway, number one podcast listeners, hopefully we delivered for you. We teased it, but I got a quick few NFL ones before I want to get to give you the floor to talk about one of your beloved other teams. This is a tough you played yourself for you especially. Football's already dead on Sundays for me, so maybe it's coming for you.
Oh, it's now dead for me too.
So a couple quick ones. You played yourself to the Baltimore Ravens and Deontay Johnson. The Ravens a little while ago traded for Deontay Johnson. They traded the Panthers a 5th-round pick in exchange for Deontay Johnson and a 6th-round pick. Since then, Deontay Johnson has 1 catch for 6 yards. And he got suspended by his team for refusing to enter the game they had against the Eagles. This experiment looks like a failure. I don't know if it's Deontay Johnson. I don't know if it's the Ravens. It felt like they never really gave him snaps to begin with. It felt like there was a rumor that he was just like a contingency plan if one of their receivers, specifically Zay Flowers, got banged up. So a weird move to make, but that experiment's quite failing. And then speaking of failed experiments, you played yourself. They can't be avoided on this one. The Giants, for how they handled their personnel, specifically Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was recently granted his release because they decided to shut him down to avoid an injury guarantee in his contract. He was reportedly playing like scout team safety, and then they decided, I think he asked to be released, and the Giants owner granted him that. He has since found his way on the Vikings, I believe, and as a backup, so I think he'll be able to be a free agent next year. Them mismanaging that entire situation, paying Daniel Jones, letting Saquon Barkley walk, who's now on pace to break Eric Dickerson's single season record for rush yards. He's already set the Eagles rush yard record, and there's still like 5 games to go. He already beat Shady McCoy's franchise record for that. That happened. So Yeah, You Played Yourself goes to the Giants and how they decided to handle the Daniel Jones saga, paying him, not drafting a quarterback, and then not keeping their other talent. So, yeah, You Played Yourself goes to them. But, you know, I wanted to first give you the floor, and I won't even tip my hat on that. I'll let you introduce the whole You Played Yourself, Akshat. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, I'll start with the easy one really quick, and I'll just say You Played Yourself to Greg Byrne, the Alabama AD, who came out after the playoff field came out, and I don't know if you saw his, like, everything he said, or it was a tweet, really. But basically, in response, he just said that disappointed with the outcome. We thought we were one of the 12 best teams. But then he said, we have said that we would need to see how strength of schedule would be evaluated by the CFP. With this outcome, we'll need to assess how many P4 non-conference games make sense in the future. What I don't get about that, and you mentioned this earlier, they had a really easy non-conference schedule. That's not the reason they didn't make it into the playoffs. They didn't make it into the playoffs because of shitty losses to conference teams. I don't understand this tweet. Like, I don't think he's wrong in his overall thought process, but that's not what applies to Alabama this year. It just seems like he's like, I don't know. It's two comments, or it's two sides of like the argument that one of them, the one that he's arguing for isn't what actually hurt his team. They beat all the non-conference teams, and they played an awful non-conference schedule. Like, they had,
Yeah, I have it up here.
Western Kentucky,
South Florida, at Wisconsin, which that probably seemed good at the time, and then
Mercer late in the year.
Yep.
So like
And that was a tune-up game, which then inevitably led to them losing by 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma.
Yeah, great tune-up game.
Daddy alert. Daddy alert.
Who
Daddy
finished
alert.
6-6 and 2-6 in the conference in their first year.
Yeah.
So they lost to, let's see, okay, Vandy and Oklahoma finished tied for 4th worst. They were both 6-6. Oklahoma's 2-6 in conference. Vandy is 3-5. Those are their 2 bad losses. They lost by 1 touchdown to Tennessee, which is an okay loss. But the main reason they're not in is losing to bottom tier conference teams.
Yeah.
And you want to complain about Power 4 schedule.
If they win one of those games, if they literally just go 1-1 against Vandy and Oklahoma, they're in the playoffs. But they didn't. They went 0-2. Yep. That's what they should be mad about, not their Power 4 or their non-conference schedule. That's not what they missed the playoffs because of. It's just a weird tweet from their AD when he's arguing for something that isn't what hurt them. But anyway, I guess I'll deal with this. The actual You Played Yourself I wanted to do here is the Bengals and everyone on the coaching staff, everyone on the defense. It's just everyone on the defense that's not named Trey Hendrickson. It's been a rough year to watch because this offense is so good and this defense is so bad. There was a period in the middle of the season, or like near the beginning of the season, where people were like, oh, the Bengals defense, they're turning it around. If they can just, continue this stretch of play, this could be a really dangerous team. Well, the stretch of games that people said that the Bengals were quote unquote turning it around was a Giants game where the Giants didn't have Malik Neighbors, and a Browns game when they still had Deshaun Watson at quarterback. So we're talking about 2 of the worst offenses in the league, and those 2 made the Bengals defense look semi-competent. But now we are 1 week removed from the Bengals giving up 400 yards to the 2024 version of Russell Wilson.
Mr. Unlimited.
There's that time when Ohtani was on the Angels or even Trout, when there's all these, every game you'd hear some, insane thing that Trout did or some insane thing that Ohtani did, but the Angels lost. It would be Ohtani, 13 Ks, 1 run allowed. The Angels lose 3-1, or Trout, 2 home runs and some insane play, but the Angels lose 5-2. Well, that's what this season feels like with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, think he still leads the league in touchdowns? I don't remember exactly. Jamar Chase, like one of the league's receiving leaders. And Trey Hendrickson is the only bright spot on defense, but he's 30 and has 1 year left on his contract. So he's not really a long-term player at this point. There's nothing to watch this team play on defense and be like, yeah, that's a guy that they should keep. They literally should just clean house on defense. But it's the NFL, and that's impossible. It is impossible to do that. And so Burrow leads the league in passing yards. Jamar Chase leads the league in receiving yards. Also leads the league in touchdown catches. Burrow leads the league in passing touchdowns.
He might set passing records, and his team's gonna finish out.
Yeah, he's having a literal
record.
MVP caliber season, and the team won't even sniff the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it's all
He's literally gonna be a statistical anomaly.
yeah. It's so hard to watch this team and watch Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase carry this team to 30-point losses. There's a tweet or a stat that I saw that the Bengals, when they score 33 plus points, they're 2-4. The rest of the league is 52-1. If you want to change that number to 35 points, the Bengals are 1-2. And the rest of the league is 35-0. It's just like it's impossible to lose as many games as the Bengals have with the amount of points they're scoring, but they find a new way every week, and I'm so tired of it. And the "you played yourself" really goes to the Bengals personnel department, Duke Tobin, whoever you want to blame it on. They don't really have an official GM because it's the Bengals and they're too cheap to hire an actual GM. But there was a time when Jesse Bates was going to be a free agent and the Bengals let him walk, and now he's one of the best safeties for the Falcons, and the Bengals have some of the worst safety play in the league. So maybe pay your guys, pay your players that are worth paying, and instead they try to save that money for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but they're not even they're not going to pay T. Higgins, and now I don't even know if they're going to pay Jamar. So what's the point?
Oh, they better.
If they don't pay Jamar, I really don't know. I mean, I was talking to one of my other friends about this, who's also a Bengals fan, and he was like, honestly, Joe won't do this because he's too nice, but he should just demand a trade. He doesn't deserve this, but he's from Ohio. He's from like an hour from Cincy.
Yeah.
He won't do it.
He won't, yeah.
But like, if he did it as a Bengals fan, I would have no problem with it because the Bengals aren't doing him any favors. And every year, they keep putting together these patchwork offensive lines with the guise of trying to protect him, but none of it's working. He's still been sacked 30 times this year, which is, top 10 in the league still? So, they've tried things. I'm not going to say the Bengals haven't tried things. They definitely tried things. Nothing's working. It's clear that they can't draft well anymore. There was a period where they could draft well, and now they've lost all that magic. But the last, 5 years, they've drafted offensive linemen and defensive backs, and none of them have hit. They've all been terrible.
That's almost impossible, too.
It's really...
But there's your reason right there.
You know what the problem is? They've drafted too many Michigan defensive backs.
Petty alert, petty alert, petty alert.
Yeah, it's that's quite the anomaly.
And it's funny because every week it's just another L in that column. I went to the Bengals Steelers game. The Bengals scored 38 points. Guess what? The Steelers scored 45 or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, you give up 45 to the Steelers, who really, all season have had no offense. And Russell Wilson, this version of him, is not like a...
Mr. Unlimited.
He shouldn't be throwing for 400 on you, ever.
Right.
414 yards, 3 touchdowns. Today, against the Browns, he threw for 158. The same guy who threw for 414 a week ago.
Yep.
So, if that's any indication of what the Bengals defense is, that's it.
Look, I stay petty, so I don't have to get petty.
That about sums it up. So football's dead, yes?
Yeah. I'm getting pretty close to it. The Bengals season is dead. I'm waiting to see what happens after the year, because there's got to be it's like Ohio State. Last year we lost to Michigan, and I was like, there's got to be major coaching shakeups, and we did. It didn't work. We're still in the same spot.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the same thing's going to happen with the Bengals. They'll make some major coaching change. And it should start with the DC. He had his time here, Lou Anarumo. He had a good, 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's pretty clear that without the right personnel, whatever his system is, it's just simply not working anymore. We've had like 2 years of the Bengals defense being one of the worst in the league, and I don't see any way it flips. There's no one on the team that I can look at and be like, yeah, that's the guy that'll carry this defense for the next 5-10 years. There's no one. No player like that exists.
There's no. That's.
There's literally no one.
That's alarming. That's alarming.
Yeah, that's it for me.
You delivered, man. Sorry for your statistical anomaly, Bengals. There.
I'm almost numb to it at this point. Every week when it happens, I'm just like, all right, well, at least the offense is good. We got that, but it doesn't matter. We're still.
As long as they keep Burrow and Chase together.
Yeah.
I really thought they should have found a trade partner for Higgins if they knew they weren't going to keep him. But.
Yeah, that's what I said too. If I said earlier in the season, like if you get to week 5 and you're below 500, like the AFC North, you can't start slow. So like it happens every year with the Bengals. They always start slow, but over the last like 5 years, they've come out of it and they've figured out ways to start winning down the stretch. But this year, when they were starting slow, you could kind of feel that there was no way they could get out of it. Like the talent just wasn't there, at least defensively. There's no way they could like flip it around.
Yeah, you can't gunsling your way out of a hole like that. Yeah.
So they started 0-3 this year and then beat Carolina, but Carolina was terrible at the time. I mean, it wasn't really a win that you could really hang your hat on, and then lost to Baltimore. And at that point, you're 1-4, week 5. And I think the Steelers were like 5-1 or something. The Ravens were also hot. There's not much you can do. At that point, I even said, like, if this is going to be the season and you're not going to extend T, find a trade partner. There are plenty of teams out there that need receivers. But here we are.
All right, Akshat. I like to wrap up. You played yourself with some non-sports ones. I know I sprung this on you, so did you have one for us? If not, you'll have your shot at Am I Hating?
No, I'm going to turn this over to you. I don't have one.
All right. Okay, so I got a couple, so I'll make up for... I won't spring it on you next time. So number one podcast listeners, non-sports, you played yourselves. This is kind of still sports leaning, but you played yourself goes to me and my friends buying tickets to the Big Ten Championship. Yeah, we played ourselves. Why do we think Ryan Day would not let us down? That was our fault. In our defense, we have bought tickets before. We have not bought tickets before, waiting for what happens in that last game. We've got duped either way, so maybe I should just not even think about going to Indianapolis ever again. So you played yourself goes to me, I guess.
So, congratulations.
And then
you played yourself.
I feel like I do this every year as the holidays approach. You played yourself goes to all of us collective adults who somehow decided that us as adults don't get gifts, or we get fewer gifts during the holiday season. Why did we have to agree to that? Like, I know it's for the kids mostly, but that doesn't mean we can't get gifts. So my plug for all of you is stop being lame and cutting out the gifts for adults. So you played yourself goes to you guys for saying, oh, we don't need gifts. We all need and want gifts. Fuck out of here.
Everyone wants to feel loved.
Yeah, I like getting gifts. I like giving gifts, but I like getting them too. Okay, Akshat, new segment since you've last been on, but am I hating? We say statements that are most likely clearly hating, but obviously number one podcast in your headphones, Prem Brulee, is a safe space, so we drop them anyway. So I'll go first, and I'll get your am I hating, because I know you came to play for your debut on it. I think both of ours are kind of in the same realm, so these will fit pretty well together. But since Thanksgiving just passed, am I hating if I say that turkey trots on Thanksgiving are so stupid? Like, who do you fucking think you are waking up early to go do an organized run on a day where people are stuffing their faces? And it's like you have to publicize it. Like, you think you're better than us or something. It's so stupid. Whoever thought of doing a 5K or whatever they are on the morning of Thanksgiving is so stupid. Like, as if it's gonna make everything better about you stuffing your face full of Thanksgiving food. Can we please stop these? Great. If it's for a great cause, like, go volunteer time elsewhere. Don't shove it in our faces that you're going on a run while the rest of us are thinking about making a brunch cocktail and either watching football, helping cook, both, or then stuffing our faces later in the day. Like, who do you think you are?
Yeah, what's funny is, like you mentioned, like they always have to tell you that they did it. It's always
Yeah.
you wake up Thanksgiving Day and it's all over their social media. Like you can't just like, if you're gonna do it, you can't just like do it in silence. Also, why are you running? I don't. Who runs for fun to begin with, let alone on Thanksgiving? That's your day.
Yeah.
That's the day off. That's like the last thing I think about on Thanksgiving Thursday, that I'm going to go exercise, let alone run.
Also, who the hell do you think you are if there's someone cooking at home and like waking up early to cook the turkey or something, and then you're going out for a run instead of helping them? If I saw someone leave and then not offer to help, I'd be so pissed if I was the one cooking all the food.
Yeah. I always thought Thanksgiving was that was the day where I would just have no worries in life other than just making food with my family and watching football and listening to music. And then there's people out here running on purpose.
Yeah, stupid. All right, what's your Am I Hating Akshat?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, mine's kind of piggybacking off of the Thanksgiving kind of holiday season stuff. Am I wrong for thinking pumpkin flavored foods generally suck? Like pumpkin pie,
You're absolutely right.
pumpkin spice latte, like this time of year comes around and all of a sudden people have this gigantic infatuation with pumpkin foods that they don't care about for the other 11 months of the year. If it's as good as you say it is, then why don't you eat it the other 11 months? I don't understand.
Yep.
In extension to that, I also feel the same way about like turkey in general. As much as people like crave or talk about turkey for Thanksgiving, no one eats turkey that way any other time of the year. So like it can't be that good.
So true. It is a bottom tier protein, and we're acting like, and the amount of work it entails for the people cooking the turkey seems not worth the payoff.
Yeah.
Like, I've had some delicious turkey, but I'm like, you've been up for like 12 hours working on this. And that in itself seems crazy.
Yeah, like you could spend a fraction of that time and eat something that tastes just as good. Like,
Yeah.
go have a steak. That probably tastes better and takes less time. Yeah, the whole infatuation with just like seasonal foods and this holiday time food is so weird to me. But maybe that's just coming from a family that didn't grow up doing that. So
Yeah, but I've had pumpkin pie, and it's bottom tier pie. I don't.
yeah,
get
there's
it.
like
Get your vegetable pie out of here.
there's like 70 different pies out there that are better, and somehow this one time of the year, people are like, "Oh yeah, pumpkin pie. That's what I want."
Are you pumpkin lovers ready for this one? I'd rather have no pie than pumpkin pie. That's how I feel.
I think I might be on the same train there.
Yep. I'm good without dessert. If pumpkin pie is the only one, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's a fact. So, sorry. I'll be sure to tell you when you're not having any pumpkin here in a few months. So, then we'll see. But great one. Great debut. Solid. Hard to argue. Not that we would anyway. But remember, number one podcast listeners, Am I Hating? Looking for a great intro. So, if you number one podcast listeners want to be featured on as the intro, think of something clever and I'll go with it. This is your show too, so if you think of a clever intro, I'm here for it. And also, number one podcast listeners, feel free to submit your Am I Hayden's or your You Played Yourselves, sports or non-sports related. I'm happy to feature them. You can send me a voice memo. You can get a hold of me on socials to submit your own. I'm happy to read them too if you just want a written one. We'd love to feature you if you think of something that gets on your nerves. This is a safe space, so we're here for you. All right, Akshat, we're going to move on to who you got and what you feeling. And I want to pay off what we talked about earlier. I want to make picks for the opening round matchups. We're not going to go all the way through the playoffs, but I want to get your picks for the 4 matchups that will happen on December 20th and 21st. I'll run down the matchups, and you give me your pick. I'll give you mine. We'll go in order of when they are going to happen. So let's start with the Friday night game, which is Notre Dame hosting Indiana, Battle of Indiana. Who you got for that one?
Well, this Indiana run was fun, but it ends here. I'm going to go Notre Dame.
I agree. Yeah. It's still weird to think that Notre Dame's one loss was to a MAC school early in the year. It's odd. I wonder how, without that loss, they'd obviously be the 5 seed because they would be undefeated otherwise, and not have a conference championship to be a top 4. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, the noon game on Saturday the 21st is SMU traveling to Happy Valley to face Penn State, who lost in the Big Ten championship to Oregon. Also backing their way into the championship because of Ryan Day. So there goes James Franklin. Akshat, who you got?
Penn State. I think.
Yeah,
that home crowd. That'll be a fun one, I think, for them.
Yep, I agree. I don't think that one's going to be. I think they should be able to handle that one. Next up is the 4 p.m. game on Saturday. Clemson Tigers, who won the ACC and stole a spot in the college football playoff, will travel to Austin to play Texas, who lost in overtime in the SEC championship. Texas's 2 losses were both to Georgia early in the year and in the SEC championship. Who you got? I'm guessing we're both going to say Texas here.
Yeah, I wanted to add a little tidbit in. Did you know that Cade Klubnik and Quinn Ewers faced off against each other in their state championship game back in 2020? Or I guess it was January of 21.
Really?
Yeah, so Cade Klubnik's team was Westlake High, and Quinn Ewers' team was Carroll Senior. Cade Klubnik won that matchup, but I think Quinn Ewers gets his revenge here.
Like that. Yeah, I think this one might be a blowout. I just can't see Clemson competing with their. I think their run ends here.
Yeah.
So okay, worth noting, like, all these spreads initially are, I think, a touchdown or less. So we're saying all this. We'll see how it goes, but obviously, I think our picks are going to be the most popular across the board. This is the one where I think might be splitting hairs in terms of experts and all that, but Tennessee traveling to Columbus, our beloved Ohio State Buckeyes coming off of the atrocious loss, will have the Tennessee Volunteers coming into the Horseshoe. So who you got?
I think I'd be a bad fan to say anyone but Ohio State, but I think it'll actually be an interesting game because Tennessee's strengths are our weaknesses, I think.
Yeah.
But if we can overcome the one fact that Tennessee has a guy named James Pierce, I think their defense is pretty vulnerable. But they do like to throw the ball, and I think we know that our weakest spot on defense might be our corners, so we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. Penalties galore.
Yeah. How many PIs will Iggy get called for in that game?
If whatever the over-under said, I take the over.
Yeah.
Listen, I love Ohio State. Perhaps I'm just in an angry state. I go into this game with very little confidence. I don't have faith in Ryan Day. I don't have faith in Ryan Day-led teams. I have total faith in this talent on this roster, but they can't call the plays. I really hope Ohio State wins and they prove me wrong, but I think Tennessee's going to come in here and beat them. I hate to say it, but I have no confidence in this team after that Michigan loss. It would be a completely different conversation. Obviously, we wouldn't be playing Tennessee if they had won the game they should have. But it left a bad taste in my mouth. This notion that, this Tennessee team is going to come up into Big Ten weather when Ryan Day and Will Howard were complaining about a clear as can be day in just cold weather, and they didn't feel like they could throw the ball against Michigan, and there was not even snow on the ground or anything. There's no precipitation. They were complaining about throwing the ball then. So
yeah, Ryan Day complained about the wind. I think it was like 10-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. I mean, so best case scenario, you're looking at the same weather. What gives me any indication that they're going to do anything different? So perhaps it's prisoner of the moment. I hope it is. I really hope I'm wrong, but I do not have any confidence in this coaching staff, specifically Ryan Day, because I strongly feel like Ryan Day overruled Chip Kelly and didn't let him call the game he wanted to in that Michigan game, because I think he's too in his head. Mm-hmm. And I hope this team responds to pressure. I mean, there's been reports of people being very upset on the team and very disappointed in the coaching staff. I hope they rally and get things together, but Ryan Day does not strike me as like a motivational rah-rah guy, and there's too much proof to think he's gonna do anything else. So I hope he proves me wrong. I hope Ohio State gets a rematch against Oregon, and then we'll see what happens. But I don't have any confidence in the meantime because he took that away in that Michigan game and repeatedly. So I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I am. But I think Tennessee's gonna come in here and get the upset, and I worry that they're gonna be the only away team to win because that's how this football season's going for me. So that's also part of it.
You remember all those years when we said, like, we always talked about, can an SEC do this? An SEC team, like, win in December in cold weather? Well, we now have a chance to be right about that. But like you said, Ryan Day gives me no confidence that we're going to actually prove them right because we just happen to also be an Ohio State team that would rather play in a dome. So here we are.
Yep. That narrative to me, like people were talking about on the playoff selection thing, is so stupid given what they complained about against Michigan. Like, there have been matchups, I think, was it last year or 2 years ago, where it actually was snowing and they still managed to throw the ball. Mm-hmm. And it was like everybody saw on TV. It was a clear-ass day. Sunny, cold, your classic Big Ten football weather, and they still couldn't move the ball. They didn't feel like they could throw it. I don't know if that was a lie. They were protecting Howard or something, but yeah, it's not magically going to get warmer, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So at best, you're going to have a similar day. So yeah, if you can't find the right hand warmers, or I don't know what you need to find to throw the ball, I'm sure Tennessee's going to figure it out, though, because that's all they do.
Yeah.
And they're going to spin it. And Igbinosun is going to get a PI. And Denzel Burke is going to get burned. So, yeah, Ohio State's a more talented team. They're arguably, like you said, one of the most talented teams in the entire country. But we're sitting here with, sure, they should be not in this matchup based on their ranking or whatever, but they are sitting here as a 8 seed versus the 9. And if they're the most talented team, they should have fucking proved it. And they haven't given me any confidence to do so. So, here we go.
Yep.
Yeah. I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you are too.
All right, Akshat, what are you feeling lately?
So I will start off with, so if those who don't know me, I grew up on Linkin Park was my favorite band growing up and still kind of is, but they're back in my life. They have a new lead singer, came out with a new album, and they're touring next year, which I now have tickets to see them here in Columbus and in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to see them twice next year after 7 years of not having them in my life. So it's a like a minor thing, but it's one of the few things that's giving me happiness right now when sports aren't. So
R.I.P. Chester.
Always R.I.P. Chester.
Glad to see the band is back. How was the new album with the new singer?
I like it a lot. She fits well with Mike Shinoda, and there's the album kind of like hits on every era of Linkin Park since they went through a lot of phases of changing around their sound, but yeah, it hits every era, and it's a good album. I like it.
Sweet.
And then my second one is the TV show Silo. I don't know if you've heard of it or if you watch it, but it's on Apple TV Plus.
Okay, I saw it when I was watching the latest Shrinking. I was like, oh, that's one of the top shows. I wonder what it is.
Yeah, it's like a post-apocalyptic world, sci-fi. It's based on a trilogy of books. I read the first book, and the second season of Silo just started a few weeks ago, and it's the second half of the first book is what. So like the first season was the first half of the first book. Season 2 is the second half of that book, and it's really good. Highly recommend it.
Is it accurate to the book?
Yeah. They made there's one episode where they made some slight changes, but nothing that's been drastic.
All right. I was wondering what it was.
Yeah, and you don't even need to read the book to see it.
Oh, I wasn't planning on it, brother.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's just a good post-apocalyptic show if that's your thing.
Love it. I'm sure that is quite the genre for a lot of successful shows these days, so I'm gonna have to check that out. My wife and I, like I mentioned, are really into Shrinking. I think we've talked about that on previous episodes, but I highly recommend that show on Apple TV. And then we just watched episode 1 of Penguin. We're a little late to the game. I know it's been reviewed really well, so we just started that. So far so good on that.
Also very good.
What I'm feeling, Thanksgiving, hosted by my brother-in-law in Chicago, former Deep Cut, but any number one podcast listeners that were also Family Resemblance listeners. My brother-in-law, Zach, hosted Thanksgiving, and he threw down. It was delicious, Zach and his wife, Katie. And then I'm looking forward to celebrating the holidays with family. Get new perspective. I'm kind of like a Scrooge. Like, I don't love Christmas music and stuff, and my favorite part is like the presents and stuff, so it feels kind of lame, but it's kind of renewed my Christmas spirit getting to see it through my son's eyes, especially this year because he's a little bit more aware of things and really into Christmas songs, so it's cool seeing that. And then music wise, since you talked music, Kendrick Lamar dropping an album out of nowhere, GNX, fantastic as usual, so love that. So that's what I'm feeling lately.
I still haven't listened to that album.
Too much EDM in your life.
Yeah, you're not wrong, honestly. That and Linkin Park has been literally all I listened to recently. That Spotify Wrapped came out. Yeah, it was pretty much all EDM. Linkin Park snuck onto the list, but other than that, it was all EDM.
Wow. Sounds about right. You number one podcast listeners, you know how I like to wrap up each episode. It is time for that Too Much Sense. Okay, number one podcast listeners, the Too Much Sense for this week is this idea of I'm going to give people the same energy they give me. I'm not a fan of that. I think I used to do that. I think, we're known for the petty alert around here.
Petty alert, petty alert, petty alert.
But in our day-to-day lives, I think that you should give people your consistent, pure, authentic energy, the realest version of you. And if they don't appreciate you, then you can walk away. Why would you stoop to a lower level just because they are operating at that low level? And then what can happen, and what's even worse, is if you stoop to their level and give them the same energy they're giving you, if it's a negative, lower form of energy, then you think you're making a point. But what if they don't know that you're making that point? It'll make you feel worse. It could make you even more upset that they're not upset that you're giving them the same energy. They're probably not going to recognize it's happening. Or if they do realize it's happening, now all of a sudden this untrue version of yourself becomes the one people know about you. They won't be able to tell that you usually operate on a higher level because they saw the lower one or they got told about the lower one. So I think don't give people the same energy that they deserve if they're stooping to a lower level. Give them your same authentic self, and then at least you can rest easy knowing that you gave it your true self and a true authentic try with them, and you can rest easy knowing that you gave it a real shot. So that's my Too Much Sense for this episode.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I think everyone should always just be themselves. There's no reason to fake who you are for someone else.
Yep. You think you're making a point, but you really aren't. Or you feel worse when they don't realize you're making a point, because then you're like, oh, I just thought I was making this grand gesture and they're going to feel bad about it, and then they don't. Or if they do feel bad about it, you feel worse. So yeah, always be your true self and live with the consequences that way. At least you know that you gave it your real authentic try.
Yeah.
All right, number one podcast listeners, that does it for this brand new episode of the number one podcast in your headphones, Prem Brulee. I've been your host, Premalbot. We brought back Akshat Singhal from the podcast dead to join us. It was a very important subject matter, this college football playoff, this expanded 12-team, first time ever. So we hope you enjoyed this edition. Please be part of the conversation. Engage in our comments on social media. Tell us what you think, your thoughts on the field, what you'd like to see different. And we will talk to you next time. Akshat, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me on. This is fun. I miss doing this.
Yeah, we're going to have you back since we dusted off that mic. But we might as well put it to use now.
Yeah, I don't want to put this back in the closet for the 3 years.
There you go. All right, you number one podcast listeners, you know the drill. Please, if you haven't already, I'm sure you have since you tuned in, subscribe, share this episode, tell a friend to tell a friend. If you haven't reviewed this podcast on all platforms, please do so. Give us a good rating. We hope we're good to you. I can't tell you how thankful I am for your support. There is a Spotify Wrap for podcasts, and it always floors me that people listen and support this. I really enjoy recording. less enjoy editing, but I do it for you, number one podcast listeners, because your support means the world to me. Truly, truly appreciate it. I try to tell those of you I interact with, but in case you haven't heard it, I do appreciate you and would appreciate continued support and shares and reviews, and word of mouth goes a long way. So can't thank you, number one podcast listeners, enough. You're the reason Creme Brulee still functions, and I enjoy doing it. So thank you all, and we will talk to you next edition.